Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for this live lecture to discuss the Geographical Autobiography. So let's get started with talking about the purpose of this assignment and looking over the brief assignment description. So the purpose of this assignment is to write your own geographical autobiography, similar to how Krakauer writes McCandless's geographical biography, studying where he goes and why, and how this impacts McCandless's identity. So one thing to note just in this first sentence is that Krakauer is, of course, writing a biography. So he's writing the story about McCandless. In this case, you're going to be writing about yourself. So you are going to have some insider knowledge, of course. Krakauer, of course, has to do a lot of speculation in his biography. You will not have to do that. So you will be able to pick and choose what's most important to you. And as we'll talk about in a moment here with the page length, you actually don't have a ton of room to do this. So you'll really have to pick and choose what you think is most important. So I really want to emphasize that you don't want to start at the beginning of where you're born and where you live the first 10 years of your life, if that's not important. If it is important, certainly start there, but you're going to really have to pick and choose the moments that are most important to make your geographical autobiography compelling. You will get to consider your own places and your own sense of them to describe who you are. So go back to our discussions about sense of place and really think about the places that had an impact on you. And sometimes you have to do this in a pretty impartial way. It's easy to think about big moves across the country, travel, things like that. And sometimes those are impactful. So I don't want to say they're not, but sometimes the places that were most impactful to us aren't as glamorous, right? Aren't as obvious. So be true to what is important in your own life that explains who you are today. You should use at least two of the texts we have read so far in this class to help frame, describe, and make connections within your narrative. So just like Krakauer does with McCandless, he borrows from other literature to describe McCandless. And McCandless makes this quite easy because he was a voracious reader as well. So many of the writers that we are reading, McCandless read, Krakauer read. So they're including those ideas, especially in terms of romanticism, into the biography. So you should do the same, choosing from our class. So do keep that in mind. You're not to choose things outside of this class. We want to focus on the content of literature and the environment, but pick something from this class, two items that make sense to help frame, describe, and make connections within your narrative. So the essay should be 3 to 4 pages in APA format, not counting the cover or the references page, and go back to the resources in the first and second weeks if you need help with those items. Remember too that GGU does have a writing lab. So if you want someone to check those things over for you, you can submit it to the tutoring services. You will be grading according to the following questions. Does the writer describe their own geographies in a college level autobiography? So this is quite subjective. I understand that, but I'll give you some pointers on what this could mean and what it doesn't mean. Starting your essay with something like, I was born in 1985 in blah, 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 and then I moved to blah, 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 and then later on I moved to blah, blah, blah. That reads as a list. So that doesn't read as a college level autobiography. It also means using college level content. So it's not as interesting to hear about, different things that you did with friends in high school or sporting events unless they are truly central to your identity. But just kind of talking about, places you went, things you did isn't really reflective. So you really want to keep sense of place in mind, be descriptive, and think about what makes this college level versus something that a 10-year-old would write, a 15-year-old would write, what makes this a reading level that's higher than that. Think about it that way. You want your audience for your autobiography to have a high reading level to understand what you're saying. Does the writer use at least 2 texts from literature and the environment? And again, I'll pause there. That means from this class. That can be a video, so that can be something that we watched. Text does not necessarily mean just prose. It can mean, audiobook, video, literature, academic article, any of those things, but it should not be from outside this class. So you will not get credit if you choose something from outside this class to frame their own geographical autobiography embedded and organized in a meaningful way. And then, is the essay 3 to 4 pages in correct AP8 format and with few editing errors? So this last one's the most objective one. Are you following the page length requirements? Are you using APA correctly? Do you not have mechanical and editing errors? So if that's true, you will get your points there. I'd also say the second question is fairly objective, utilizing 2 texts and embedding them in a meaningful way. There's some subjectivity, of course, to meaningful, but if you're finding 2 texts from what we've done so far and embedding them with the content in a way that flows and makes sense, you're well on your way. So keep in mind that a lot of times with any college essay, not just in this class, but any college essay, a lot of the requirement in doing well is simply following directions. Of course, there's difficulty in the places that are subjective with writing, but a lot of times it's just following directions. You're going to do okay, and you're probably going to do well even. So this is a quite fun assignment, I think. So enjoy it. I take the chance to really reflect on the places that were important to you, be descriptive, be reflective. And I hope you enjoy thinking about these different concepts and why and how they're meaningful to you. And I am looking forward to reading all of your writing.